Tonight on Elon Local News.
I don't really know the motives for it.
So it is kind of concerning that I haven't heard anything back.
Crime and concern. Reports of car break-ins and harassment cause safety concerns on and around campus.
Elon University Police Chief Joe Lemire joins us live to give us insight and analysis of 2020 crime reports ahead.
Round 2 for the flu. Students have strong reactions to a second year of flu vaccine mandates.
In Marching for Change, Elon students join North Carolinians in Raleigh to fight for their rights.
All that and more.
Elon Local News starts now.
Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us. This is Elon Local News. I'm Chloe Franklin.
And I'm Ellis Chandler. We begin with ENN team coverage this evening as reports of car break-ins and harassment cause safety concerns on and around campus. After an incident this weekend resulted in a local man's arrest. Our Caitlin Rundle reported outside the station at Mill Point where the incident occurred.
Thank you, Ellis and Chloe. I am standing outside the back entrance of the station at Mill Point where I have in hand with me town police reports detailing the arrest of resident Michael Lassiter of Southold Avenue. Lassiter was arrested on Saturday for resisting a public officer and disorderly conduct. Lassiter and students living in the station at Mill Point have had an exchange of words and handwritten signs. Members of the Mill Point group me say that they've been yelled at for not using the sidewalk and walking down the road instead. They said they've also been yelled at for cutting through the backyard of an abandoned house toward the end of Southold Avenue, turning onto West Challenger. Members of Mill Point met with the police this past Friday to discuss the verbal harassments they've received from the house. One of those at the meeting was senior Sarah Malone, who says that she no longer feels safe walking down the street by herself.
I don't want to have to be scared to walk down the street, especially when I'm not littering, I'm not peeing in anyone's yard, like I'm not antagonizing him, so I don't understand why he can't just leave us alone.
Officers say Lassiter began, quote, yelling and cursing at individuals as they walked by his residence, end quote, when they arrived on Saturday. According to this report, after ignoring multiple requests to stop, Lassiter was arrested and processed at the Elon Police Department. He was then sent to the Alamance County Jail. His court date is set for November 17th, and he told ENN earlier this afternoon that he does not want to comment until he meets with his attorneys later in the week. Chloe and Ellis, back to you in the studio.
Caitlin Rundle, thank you so much. Elon News Network will continue to follow the story as it develops.
There have been at least 30 reported vehicle break-ins on or within a half-mile radius of Elon's campus last month, many of them students. They are still wondering what local law enforcement are doing to protect them. Our Jenna Mandarioli has more.
Questions remain after numerous vehicle break-ins were reported in surrounding neighborhoods, impacting students across the Elon community. 2 weeks later, and senior Isabella Lane remains frustrated for answers. Her black Toyota Camry was locked, but still broken into. She says she feels lucky that nothing was stolen.
It's kind of unnerving knowing that even though I locked my car, people can still get into it. And like there was no smashed windows or anything. Like if they hadn't moved everything around and kind of left it a mess, I wouldn't have known. Just really scary.
Elaine says between academics, organizations, and social life, students have a lot on their minds, and worrying about safety shouldn't have to be one of them.
It's the cops' job to keep our property safe and to keep us safe as students, especially the campus police. So it is kind of concerning that I haven't heard anything back.
Senior Shannon Tracy woke to see items moved around in her car on September 20th. She knew she had left a few high-priced personal items inside, including her Ray-Ban sunglasses. Like Elaine, her car was also locked up for the night. Despite the break-in, nothing was stolen, leaving her thankful but confused.
I don't really know the motives for it. I know that there have been other break-ins and nothing was taken as well. So, definitely making sure that I lock my doors, but also not keeping expensive things in there, not keeping really anything in there. If they were able to get in to a locked car before, I know that it's a possibility again.
Tracy and Elaine have not heard back from the Town of Elon Police Department since filing the report. Town Police declined ENN's request for comment. Jenna Mandarioli, Elon Local News.
Meanwhile, the 2020 Fire and Safety Report details crimes reported on and off campus. Liquor law violations made up the most offenses out of any category with over 250 offenses. Drug law violations were second with over 60 offenses. Elon University reported one hate crime involving communicating threats in 2020, but there is no stated definition of a hate crime in the report. A full overview of the 2020 report is on our website, elonnewsnetwork.com. And joining us now to weigh in on all of this is Elon University Campus Police Chief Joe Lemire. Chief Lemire, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with the fire and safety report that we just read over a little bit there. I know you didn't begin in your role until March of this year, and the report is kind of from 2020, but moving forward from that report, where are kind of like, I guess, the pain points for campus security?
So I think on any college campus, anything related to larceny and theft is a crime, dating violence and sexual violence, and then certainly drugs, alcohol, and weapons, which is what's recorded on there. So those are areas that we would focus on related to either making an arrest, which would be recorded there, or the referral to discipline, which would be if we didn't make an arrest or didn't write a citation, it would go to conduct on campus.
Sure, and alcohol and drug disciplinary actions do make up the highest of all of those. So can you kind of tell me how you distinguish between those violations that are kind of processed versus the ones that are handled through campus?
We give the officers the discretion on what would happen in that case. I've seen remember the 2020 report was mostly COVID time, so campus was fairly shut down, and then it was very covered as regulations of who could gather. So those were low, but usually it's the officer makes the discretion as to am I going to write a citation or not, and that could be based on the situation, the behavior, the cooperativeness of the person they're dealing with. We have a very close relationship with conduct, so it's a great process, and we often send stuff through there. So I would expect the numbers, referrals, to be higher than arrests.
I see. And, we just looked and mentioned about burglaries and motor vehicle thefts and those as well. Those numbers were very, very low last year, but we've already kind of seen those numbers go up. Could you tell me a little more about how you're handling those?
So the difference is going to be motor vehicle theft would be the stealing of the vehicle. The breaking into the vehicle would not be something that's recorded through Clare. So that's not actually a quote-unquote Clare crime. But obviously it's an area that we want to focus on. So a number of things we've done is we've met with the students down at Crest where a lot of the things had occurred. We're putting in more security cameras in that area and really putting out to campus and the town of telling people the most important thing is to lock your car. And a lot of people, it's a fob-driven vehicle now. So we're telling them, keep that out of the vehicle because people that are going to go into an unlocked vehicle are automatically going to touch the brake, push the button to see if the car starts. And it's going to if the fob is in the car, and that's how the cars get stolen. So some of it is education and letting people know that. Some of it is what we do as police. Burlington police we're working with because the suspects in those crimes are juveniles. We know who they are. They're going through the system. And then the juvenile system related to them and the justice system are going to do what they do with those cases. But we do have those identified.
Sure. And could you kind of tell me about too any, I know you mentioned the security cameras in Crest, but any new safety measures you're looking to implement, any changes, to say the blue light poles we have on around campus, anything like that?
I think mostly people always have access to those types of things, but it's a lot of the educational piece. So one of the things I'm starting up from a community policing standpoint is our liaison work with housing. So we have certain sergeants, corporals, and officers that are assigned to every neighborhood. We really want to get them to start having those relationships with RAs and other people in those neighborhoods. So the whole idea of community policing is solving problems as they occur. And this is an obvious problem, whether it happens in the Oaks area, the Crest area, or elsewhere, they should be working with those officers. And it's a pilot program, so there's going to be some bumps as we get going, but we want those relationships to develop over time because that's really educational-wise where we're going to solve these issues.
Sure, and I'm sure we'll be following that as it develops as well. And, violent crime rates are kind of increasing across the country as well. They're up by a third in Atlanta, they're up by a third in New York, they're up by well over 100%, and far across the country is Portland, and they're really high in North Carolina as well. So could you kind of tell me, as a nationwide statistic, how are we trying to combat that here in the town of Elon and more specifically on our campus?
I think the untold story in the violent crime, and I think it's really related in the larger cities related to homicide and things of that nature, it's really the recruitment of police officers across the country is down by 40%. So when you look at these police departments, a lot of people, the pendulum is swinging back to say we need officers on the road. But at the point someone says we need, say, 50 officers on the road, to the point those 50 officers are on the road, could be 12 to 18 months. recruiting an officer, training an officer, field training an officer to enough where they could work on their own on a road, that is a long time. So the pendulum is swinging back. It's going to take some more police on the road. There's a lot of changes to policy of how police operate, but I think that whole package is going to work well, and I would say in the coming years to get that crime rate down.
All right, well, that is all the time we have for this evening. But Chief Lemire, thank you again for taking the time with us this evening. And, we'd love to have you back and answer more questions and follow up on some of the stories here on our show this evening.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Elon University reports currently 15 active cases of COVID-19 on campus. 17 tests were administered yesterday, with 2 testing positive. Overall cases this week have been trending down, with 19 total cases at this time last week.
And coming up, the newest vaccine mandate. Students give their take on the flu vaccine mandate next. Alamance Burlington Schools Superintendent Bruce Benson requested to be released from his contract effective January 1st, telling the board Thursday he wants to devote more time to family priorities and his personal life. Benson denied our request for an on-camera interview, but provided a statement writing, quote, "It is my hope that the board will choose a path forward in the coming weeks that will ensure ongoing work will progress in a positive direction and outcomes will continue to improve for our students, staff, and community."
Requiring students on campus, but not faculty and staff, to get the flu vaccine for the second year in a row. Our Naomi Washington talked to students across campus to hear their thoughts on the mandate and got some mixed reviews.
Initially, I was annoyed. I've gotten like the flu vaccine shot once in my life. I think it should be encouraged for students to get it, but definitely not mandatory. I think I'll just take it to not be a hassle, but I'm definitely pissed about it.
Like, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but the lines were kind of long, so it was just kind of like a part of my day to just like go and do that. But it was still like positive. I think it's a positive thing.
I didn't really have an opinion about it, but my parents did. My mom does not think the flu vaccine is like a good idea for us, and we never really got it in the past.
I feel that they made the right choice by making it required so that we have a safer campus and we don't have to have any close calls with stuff like that.
We already have COVID going around. I don't think we need another sort of fun little disease going around campus. So I think flu vaccines are important and needed.
Students are required to get the vaccine or apply for exemption by October 29th. They can register for an appointment on the Healthy Elon website.
Tuition discussions are set to begin this week as administrators discuss tuition for the next academic year. President Book told ENN back in August that she anticipated the raise, saying, quote, "It's the cost of doing business."
Elon is a lean university, right? We come in almost $18,000 less than our peers in annual tuition. And we're proud of that because it keeps it within arm's reach of middle-class families. We know private education's expensive. I will say the cost of doing business is we're feeling it, right? You go to eat at a restaurant, it costs more, and that's probably labor-driven, right? Mm-hmm. So your people are the $15 minimum wage that we put into effect several years ago for our employees. You're seeing at restaurants and all that, and steel costs more, as we do that.
So inflation.
So inflation. I do anticipate we will have some tuition increase, and the amount will reflect whatever we've learned about the current environment.
University spokesperson Owen Covington tells ENN, quote, "Given that those formal discussions and deliberations of the board have not yet begun, it would be premature at this time to offer details about tuition changes being considered." And if you're watching live, comment below and let us know what you think.
The Supreme Court began its new term today, and ahead of its reconvening, rallies demanding full reproductive rights took place around North Carolina and across the nation on Saturday. Our Michael Wolf has the story.
Roughly 1,000 people gathered in downtown Raleigh on Saturday as a part of the nationwide Women's March. The rally was in response to recent abortion laws in Texas, healthcare reform, and LGBTQIA+ rights. Elon Jr. Casey Fountain joined the rally and says marching for women's rights is often stigmatized.
A big misconception that I think people have about why I'm marching is that they think I'm marching because I'm pro-abortion, and I'm not. I don't know anybody who's part of this movement that is pro-abortion. That's why it's called pro-choice, not pro-abortion. Nobody wants abortions to have to occur. No female wants to be put in that position.
Another junior, Julia Sciano, says she marched because she believes everybody should have access to these rights and to educate themselves about their sexual health.
I'm obviously afraid for my own rights as well, but I also think that because abortion is such a topic in which it is access-oriented, coming from a place of privilege, I know that I will most likely always have access to that, and I am fighting for the people who won't be able to have that access and won't be able to get there.
All who attended held signs as they marched beginning and ending at the Bicentennial Mall in downtown Raleigh. There were a number of speakers, including representatives from the Carolina Abortion Fund and Planned Parenthood of North Carolina. Even a DJ to give ralliers a boost on an emotional day at the Capitol. Michael Wolf, Elon Local News.
For full coverage of the Women's March in downtown Raleigh, visit our website, elonnewsnetwork.com.
Tomorrow is primary day for the Burlington mayoral and city council races. After the votes come in, half of the candidates from each race will move forward to Election Day next month. The polls will be open tomorrow from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. For more information on the candidates running for mayor and city council, visit elonnewsnetwork.com.
Coming up, I'll join you to recap Elon's Phoenix much-needed victory.
Facebook and their own properties, including Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger, were hit today by sweeping outages, leaving users in the U.S. and Europe locked out. The outage occurred around 11:45, and at this hour, some users still cannot access it. The company said on Twitter they are working to get things fixed as soon as possible.
Okay, now I have to be on 22 minutes after the hour now, and for a look at the weather ahead, our Clare Schoenfeld joins us live here in the studio with your Phoenix 5-day forecast.
Claire, good evening to you.
Good evening, Chloe and Ellis. Today we are going to see storms. On Tuesday we're going to see storms with a high of 82, low of 66. Wednesday going to be cloudy, high of 81, low of 65. Thursday, stormy as well, high of 75, low of 63. And Friday and Saturday, also some stormy weather, high of 75, low of 62, and high of 74, low of 62 as well. Now, weather's looking a little gloomy, but it's our last full week of school before finals, so push through your last classes and midterms. Back to you guys.
Claire Schoenfeld with your Phoenix 5-day forecast this evening. Thank you so much.
The Student Union Board sold over 1,100 tickets for this year,
which is set to be held in Schar Center this Friday. Sub-President Emily Sanderson says they have plans for additional pop-up opportunities this week for students who have not already purchased their tickets. If you don't have yours yet, tickets are available for purchase at the door or through the Elon ticket office for $30. More details for the concert can be found on our website, elonnewsnetwork.com.
I will read this.
The women's soccer team tied for the first time this season yesterday against Delaware. Delaware scored first in the 65th minute of the game, but Elon was quick to score 2 minutes later, tying the score 1-1. The game went into 2 overtime periods, but neither team scored again. It is a NCAA rule that regular season college games have to end after double overtime. Elon currently stands at 5 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw this season. The women's soccer team will host the College of Charleston at 7 p.m. this Thursday.
Joining us now to discuss all the action on and off the field from Elon Athletics this weekend is Elon News Network sports reporter Bryson Byrnes. Bryson, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course.
So Elon had a very big win this weekend over 21st ranked Richmond. Can you tell us kind of what the big key was to that this weekend?
Well, they played phenomenal on defense. They only allowed 7 points against a team that was averaging 27 points coming into the game. The Spiders went 0 for 3 in the red zone, meaning the defense stepped up when their backs were against the wall. And from there, it was easy for the offense led by Davis Cheek to easily score and get the easy W.
Of course. And moving on to volleyball, they also had a big win against Towson. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, many would say that this is probably their biggest win in program history. Towson is a perennial power. They were 15-1 coming into the game, and they're back-to-back conference champions. They looked great offensively with Leah Daniel, Natalie Cummins, and Sydney Love each having 12 kills in Game 1. And even though they lost the second game against Towson, they're still at the top of the conference standings, and they could be the #1 seed going into the tournament this upcoming November.
Wow. And women's soccer, as we just saw, had a pretty big game on the pitch this weekend. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the rest of their season is going to look like?
Absolutely. They've played pretty consistently so far this season. They've looked really good. Their defense has been really strong so far this year. They've only allowed 3 goals during the 6 games that they played in September, so they're looking really good so far.
Bryson, Byrnes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, go green with Elon Sustainability this week. We've got more on this after the break, so stay right here.
You're watching Elon Local News.
Today kicked off Elon's Fall Campus Sustainability Week, which features events hosted Monday through Friday across campus. Our Haley Phelps has the story.
Office of Sustainability intern Lauren Hill says the goal of this week is to inspire positive change in the Elon community.
Sustainability is really about these 3 pillars. It's people, prosperity, and planet. So it's about how can we protect social structures for people and environment structures and general wealth from a business standpoint, and how all of those aspects are going to be sustainable for future generations.
Hill hopes the event will challenge students to think deeper about sustainability beyond the basic ideas of recycling and not littering.
I think that the best kind of possible outcome is just to be spreading awareness and, again, to spark that interest in someone else.
Office of Sustainability intern and Eco-Rep coordinator Samantha Schwamberger says she is excited to share her passion for sustainability and the environment with others.
When it comes to health and mental health, when it comes to working and school, it's really important that you're implementing sustainable practices, not just thinking about the environment, but thinking about your own health and well-being.
Schwamberger?
The full story can be found on elonnewsnetwork.com.
That's all the news we have for you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
When we're not on the air, visit our website for the latest information across campus and throughout the county, elonnewsnetwork.com.
Be sure to follow us on social media at Elon News Network.
We'll see you right back here Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern for our last ELN morning before fall break.
Have a great night, Elon.